Okay, go and get started. This is web290 week 1 introduction this week. My name is Chuck Honk. I'll be with you the next 15 weeks and 16 weeks actually. And this is PHP. So if you're in the right class, stay. If not, nice to see you. But tonight we're just going to go over introduction. Hopefully you've had a chance to enter the pin in. You're in your machine. If you do have a USB drive with you, I'm going to go through a tutorial using a USB drive tonight on the computer. If you don't have yours with you, don't worry about it. You can install this at home and do everything at home that you need to do on a USB. How many Windows people do we have? You're using Windows at home for development? Okay, how many Mac people? Okay, about 2, okay. So I'll be doing this instruction tonight using Windows on installing the software. I'll also have one that I will be doing for the Mac, but tonight I'll do one for Windows for everybody. But the Mac's pretty simple as well. Both are real simple to do. But what I want to go over tonight is introduction to course content, how to install the software you need. As you can probably guess, it will be installed and ported to class on your USB each Wednesday. You'll be running it from a USB as far as dragging the contents of a USB to your desktop and running it that way each week and then moving it back when you're done. And then when you get home, you can move it back through USB from your USB back to your desktop and run it. And so it runs completely from a USB thumb drive. So PHP Web Development has been around for a number of years. It's probably about 85% saturation in the web development market, meaning most of the websites you see today are developed in PHP. And this semester you're going to learn the basics of PHP from syntax, database connectivity. We'll do some website building towards the end of the semester. You'll have 3 or 4 weeks to build your own website of your own choosing. And then you'll present that on the final night in May. And so up through around week 12, though, each week we'll be building your skill set in PHP. Each week you will generally have a assignment, a take-home assignment, plus a lab assignment. The lab assignment we'll probably do here in the classroom, and then the take-home will be the one that you will turn in on your own and work on your own outside of class and submit it. You will also, starting this week, begin your own website. You'll get a free host website that I recommend that everybody uses. In fact, I require everybody uses it. And so you'll be signing up for that this week and getting your own URL for your website. If you do want to host your own server at home, like I do, to host this class, I have the instructions how to do that, and we'll go over that tonight. It's not required though, but if some of you want to play with that and do that, that's fine. You can do that as well. And then we will also be each week, the first part of the session will be chapter discussion, content over what we're going over, examples I'll have to show you. Then we'll jump right into the lab that week. Most weeks do have a lab. When you're through with the lab, that's for your own purpose. I do not walk around and collect any of the labs, but it's for you to keep on your USB drive for sure, a working copy of it. And while I'm talking about working copy, both the labs and the homework, the take-home assignments, both have source code already in the week-by-week folders you'll see in just a second. So there's no guessing as of what the code should look like. If you're having issues, you can download the original source code for both the labs and also the take-home. All right, and so that's definitely beneficial for a developer just learning a new language. And then there's also other downloads you'll see in a second that we don't use that you can use maybe for implementation in your website at the end of the semester. And so there's a lot of content on this site that's built up over the years. A little background on me. I was a graphic designer, web developer for 8 years in Springfield, Missouri. Moved here to begin teaching, and I've been here since 2001. And I'm also a Windows developer and an iOS developer as well. So I do PHP, Windows, and iOS platform, all three. And you'll find a lot of developers that will do that. And so just depends on what job market is to learn a new skill. If you already know basics of programming, to pick up a new language isn't really that difficult to do. And so as far as time devoted each week, I would say, I always tell my programming students in every programming class, and this is no different, give yourself at least 5 hours a week devoted just for this class. And if it only takes you 3 hours, it only takes you 3 hours. But I would say give yourself at least 5 hours to start with, and that means going over the lab, any reading that you might have that week, because there's some weeks that we don't use the textbooks. There's some week we use online resources. There's some weeks we use PDF files that have content that I want you to read. And so depending on what the week is, will depend upon what text you read from, whether it be your text here, the Rocks text, or an online version or a PDF version. There's also some of the lessons I built from scratch that are out here as well that we'll use throughout the semester. And so I would say devote 5 hours. Just say, okay, I'm going to do 5 hours, and 3 to 4 weeks down the road, it might vary. Some weeks might take an hour, some weeks might take 3 hours, some weeks might take 30 minutes. It just depends on the lesson and how hard it is for you to grasp. I always tell students, if you're having issues with something, keep doing it over and over again, delete it and start all over again. Sometimes we get vested in our projects and we think, well, if I just hold on, I'll figure it out. With programming, especially when you're first learning, it's easier actually to start from scratch over and over again until you get it. All right? Now, as you become more experienced and you've got maybe 3 or 4 years of development under your belt, you're not going to scratch every project as you get into a hard spot. But as you're developing and learning development platform, it is easier for you to grasp what's going on, because generally what you're doing is missing little bitty things that you skipped possibly, or nuances with your computer maybe, or whatever, okay? And so it's easier just to, I always tell students just to start over again with that code from scratch, look at my examples I've given you, and then just, brush off the stress and start over again. Now, it's always good also when you get stuck to take a break if you need to, get away from it for a while, take a day or two off, because I give you a whole week to complete the assignment from Wednesday to Wednesday, and so what's due this week is not, what I assigned this week is not due till next Wednesday, okay? So you have a whole 7 days from the class time, and so that gives you a little bit of leeway to get stuff done. Now, if you don't have a computer at home, we do have the WTC lab you can use. Since we're loading our development software from a USB, the one thing I do right off the get-go, highly recommend that you do each time that you use this software, is that you drag that software to that desktop of that computer, whether it be a Mac or PC, and there is an executable, you'll learn where that's at tonight, that you'll click on to launch the software to begin developing. And what it does basically is it converts that computer into a web server, regardless if it's a Windows or a Mac machine, to where you can begin developing and testing locally on that computer. Now, you'll also be, right on the get-go, submitting not only a zip file of your work, starting in week 2 as your first homework assignment with code, you'll also be uploading that same code to your external website from second week on. All right, and the reason I want you to do that is, and to just make you do that, is because as a developer, you're not only needing to learn code, you're needing to also know how to deal with FTP and uploading and downloading and working with external sites, because as a web designer, you'll be doing that all the time. Okay, so one of the learning curves is going to be that, but don't sweat it, you'll get it, we'll walk you through how to use it, and you'll do fine. So each week you will upload, and then also you will send to me a zip file as well, you'll find out in just a second. So that's pretty much the makeup of the class. As far as time-wise, when we start, as we go through whatever topic we're going over that week, that's already in our lessons for the folders that are in Eagle, we'll go into lab time. Right after lab time, we'll be done. That might be 9 o'clock. You can stay and work if you need to, or you can go home and finish it up there. Start working on your homework. So I'll give you about an hour lab time in here outside of class time to actually, for me to walk around and help you if you need it, or whatever the case may be, okay? That way we're not just right at the end, you know, so close that I can't even answer any questions, and you have to come back for office hours or something. And so I want to use that Wednesday time wisely, and so we'll probably get out around the 9-ish time, I'm guessing. Most Wednesdays we might go over that, but I'm going to try to do around 9. That way you can stay if you need to work on your stuff, or if those of you that want to just go home and work on it, that's fine. But if you need help, you can hang back, and I'll definitely help you. And also too, in development class, you'll learn your neighbor to your left and right, and you might decide to work together with each other for 10, 15, 20 minutes each Wednesday night after we're done, just to kind of make sure you guys both get what's going on and you can help each other or whatever the case may be. So maybe you'll do that as well. It's not required that you do that, but that seems to what happens a lot of times in development class, okay? I know some of you have already had development before, some of you haven't, any type of web language or any language at all. But definitely look at each other around you as a group, as a team. I encourage that, to help each other. You're not on your own. You're not a lone ranger in here, so you know we're here to all help each other. And so if you get finished with something we're doing in a lab and you're done and you see your neighbors struggling with it, just kind of peek over there and see if you can maybe help them out, see if there's anything you can do to help them. Generally in code and language, it's syntax for the most part. If you've taken any type of language before, you forget a semicolon, you type in the wrong word altogether, and so it's generally you replace the vowel, an A with an O or an O with an E, you know, whatever. And so that's normal. And it sometimes is good, well, it's always good to have a second pair of eyes a lot of times too. I program 8 hours a day, and so there's a lot of times I might get stuck on something, and I'll have somebody come over and look at it, and I might have actually been looking at it for hours, and they're going, well, what's about that right there? Yeah, that's it. And so, you know, it's good to get a second pair of eyes to look at it. Even if you wanted to send each other code, I'm more than welcome to help you with that, but you can send each other code as well and say, can you look at this to see what's wrong? What am I doing wrong here? And a lot of times, again, that second pair of eyes will help you do that. That make sense? And so I definitely encourage it. That to me is not plagiarism. In programming, you're going to have a lot of sharing of code and resources and helping each other. And so even in a job situation, you're going to have that a lot. Okay, well, let's go and get to the layout here. You'll notice when you come in, the pin is here. I'll have it up before we get started. This week is a total introduction of getting things started. So there's not, like I said, not any coding assignments this first week. Just getting your software installed, getting used to the interface, getting used to me. And so the pin, just enter that in as soon as you come in. That way we can get started right when the time starts here. This here is a chat module that if I'm online or my phone's online, it will, if you see that you can actually just enter your name and hit chat. It waits like 30 seconds, and if I'm connected, it'll tell me that you want help. And any time of the day or night, whenever you want to come here I would try this first before you email me to see if I'm online. And I can help you. What's great about this module is I can include screenshots, I can include file uploads instantaneously to this module. And so it works really well. I have an app on my iPhone that basically, and my iPad both, that runs this. And so I would say try this first when you come to the site. Now again, if it's 3 in the morning, probably not going to be up and connected. If I am connected, I won't answer, okay? But you can definitely try it. That would be the first thing to try. And then also on the left side of the screen, we can start with the milestones, if we can expand those real quick. I'll have to connect these two and update them. Let's let's see, you should have an About Me in here. There you go. About Me is this week. And we should also have week 1, which is completion. Let me go ahead and update this real quick while this is here. 327. Okay, week of 327. Okay. That's going to be 3rd. I think this one here is your final presentation. Yeah. So let me put the date on that. Much better. Okay, so you've got the About Me this week, and you also have week 1. We'll go over both of those. But the milestones just basically tell you weeks 1 through all the way through week 16, basically, due dates that are coming up, okay? As you click on each one of these due dates, if you go in, like, say, week 1, it'll take you right to that assignment, which is read and follow the instructions on getting started, post your full name and the title and your website and the website URL on the message. And then I have a link to our website that I've hosted. So this milestones, as you submit things, it'll check mark it if you're not familiar with Eagle. If you are, you already know that. But being check marked does not mean that it's graded, okay? Now I see that these are check marked and it's kind of grayed out because some of you have already submitted your About Me already, okay? The other way to look at due dates is a calendar tab. Students seem to like this one better. I think I do too. It's a little nicer bird's eye view of what's coming up. But whichever one you like, definitely utilize it. The third way you can see what's coming up, and I recommend this way actually out of all of them, is I have taken the liberty and put the date, the actual night we're meeting on the folder name. And so you can just go into that folder of that week 1 and it'll tell you what we're going to be doing. Like week 2, next week, PHP and variables. We'll be going over variables next week and operators. And it goes over what we'll be doing in the practice lab and what you'll be doing for homework. Okay? So if you go to the lesson folder structure, you can, here only shows you the dates. The lesson folder structure with the folders shows you everything in there. From the lesson, the lab, homework, all your source code, podcasts that I might have out there already, that I've had out there for a semester or two, I'm just keeping in there. So, let's go to the course documents first. We will not go everything in here. I'm not going to open everything up in here anyway. I'll just tell you what these are. Okay, about PHP course, I've already went over that pretty detailed, so I'm not going to open this one up, but it just gives you a synopsis, like a paragraph of broke down what I already told you. The PHP textbooks, that one I will open up. This has online resources, hard copy, and resources for MySQL database, XML, AJAX, stats, scripts, and CIS div tags. So these are just for your benefit. These are just resource links, basically. The book that you have here is a downloadable PDF file of your book in total that you can download and put on a tablet or on a laptop or on your computer at home, and it is a full PDF version of the text that you can have and use. Set up PHP and MySQL we'll look at in just a second. This is what we're going to do after we go through Eagle. We'll walk through how to set up Zamp, which is the platform we'll be using on a USB thumb drive. Creating MySQL database and user. This is a podcast link that goes to a link on how to do that. And if you've not had me before, I've already mentioned podcasts a few times. Everything that we're doing in here is being recorded, both what's on the screen and my voice. And so right after the session tonight, I will post this. I don't know if you already saw that. Inside of week 1, there's also a placeholder already for the podcast to go to after the class is over. So what we went over will actually be posted here for you to look at. One of the things I do recommend if you're going to view the podcast is there is in YouTube a HD quality link. I recommend clicking that because it'll make the video much crisper and clearer, especially when I go into code. If you don't do that, it will look kind of blurry. So if you click on the HD quality link, it looks much better. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. I'll go into week 2's podcast here. Down here at the bottom, this little gear change quality, I'm going to go all the way up to 720p. And I can expand it all the way out. Okay, and so it's going to be a much crisper screen than the lower quality, which I'll show you what it was at right there. That's really blurry. And so you definitely want to do the 720p quality. And that's going to be, you're going to be able to make things out much better. Okay? Okay, go back to the documents folder if you would, if you haven't left it yet. Website examples of past semesters. I actually show you this again when we get around week 13 when you start developing, or 12 when you start developing your own final website. But these are just some of the websites that students have created for this class over the last few semesters. And so you can look at those. Some of them are more elaborate than others. Some are pretty plain Jane. And you'll be able to tell which is which by looking at them. But I put some examples out there for you. PHP helps. This here is a PDF file of just that. PHP helps goes over just a real quick synopsis of the PHP language and real easy terminology. So it's a resource outside your text. Setting up a database for 00 web host, that's going to be needed whenever we get to the week where we talk about database connectivity. And so that's going to be needed for that. How to upload your local host to an external host using FTP. I have a podcast for that as well. And this link actually takes you, I believe, to a, I'll have to fix that. This actually is a HD quality video as well, but just make sure you click on the HD link to get it in YouTube. I talked about this earlier already, but setting up a web host and online PHP editor at home for free. This is just a step-by-step instructional of how to set up your computer at home to be a web server, to be accessed outside your house. Linking Wix.com website to 00 web host. Some students like to use Wix.com as a front end for their site, and then just put the data for the class behind it, and you can do that as well if you want to. And so Wix.com is an option. So Wix.com will be the front page, and then 00 web host will be where you'd host all your folders and all the links to your exercises, weekly assignments. Data files, this is just a download of all the code in your book. Rocks gives you every bit of code it shows you from cover to cover, and that's a link to that code. Okay. I like the Rocks text because it's written by web developers, and it just gets right to the point, and so that's the data files for that. So as you're reading through the text, if you download these data files, you'll be able to actually see the code in action with the code that they've given you. Labs, I talked about this earlier. These are labs we will be doing this semester, plus some of these we will not be doing, but I went ahead and threw them in there anyway over the few years I've taught this. I guess it's been 6 years now. And so if I find a new lab, I'll put it in there. If I find one that I like, I'll put it in there this semester. And then this web290 zip we'll talk about in a second. So that's the course documents. Let's go back to the lessons breadcrumb here. Now I want to go into the web290 course site. If you click on that link and then click on this link here, web290.us.2. Test that there. Yeah, it's down right now. Oh, it'll be up. Don't worry about it. But that's the website basically where all the examples are hosted, and there's been some connections issues here tonight, so I'll make sure that's up and going. But that's the website basically where all of your examples for each week is going to be hosted at. So let's go into week 1. Week 1, you'll read and follow the instructions on the getting started. I'll go ahead and click on that, and you can too. The course website I already went over. It will be up and going. I'll get it going here tonight, make sure things are up and going for you. I try to keep it turned off up to the first night just to make sure everything's okay and nothing bad happens to it. Read about course, PHP course, we already went through that. If you're a PC person, Notepad++ is what I want you to download to your PC for editing your code. If you're a Mac person, Text Wrangler is the one I want you to use. These are both just TextPad type of documents. Nothing real fancy about them. Both of them have some type of IntelliSense or just coding coloring for the code. So as you put in certain syntax and certain variable names, if they're built-in names for that language, it will highlight them. But it doesn't do anything for you. It's just a really nice, clean environment to develop in. Bookmark these 3 here, because you'll be using these throughout the semester in your week-by-week assignments. Hard copy text, the bookstore still has some. Here's a code download for the text. It's the same one that I showed you earlier in the lesson in the documents. This here's some online examples. Some of the weeks here that she created does not work. So it's kind of hit and miss on that online example. Read and perform the setups for PHP and MySQL. We'll do that in just a second in class. Subscribe to the course podcast through iTunes. iTunes, if you don't already have it at home, is a free download from Apple for Mac or PC. Register for a free web host. I'll go ahead and click on this to show you, and this is being recorded so you can watch it later. Basically, you'll go down here to the free web hosting. And notice it brings you to Wix now on the free web hosting. And that's for the front end that a lot of students actually started using a couple semesters ago. So free web hosting, that's just for GUI interface type stuff. To sign up to this, most of you don't have your own domain, so you'll be putting in a domain here of your choosing. It'll tell you if it's available or not. So I recommend something, that's kind of personal to you, but make it a kind of a unique name. That's not a, dictionary name or anything. That way, because if you don't, you'll have to keep going until one's available. You'll put your name, email in, password, the nice CAPTCHA, 2-word CAPTCHA, and then click agree and create. And let me show you the interface here real quick. To log in, I'll go back to the very front page. To log into this site after you've registered, you'll click the members area. And I haven't been in a while, so they might have suspended mine because I haven't been in probably a month on my free one here. So they usually create one for the students the first part of the semester, and I don't get in again. There we go. Okay. So here's one here. I've got what you'll be doing as far as uploading stuff and doing things is you'll go to the C panel, and in the C panel they've got a number of items to go to. The one that you're going to be wanting information on is right in here, specifically FTP information. It'll give you the FTP host name, your username. You should already know your password. It's going to be the same. You can change your account password if you don't know it right here. They recommend Smart FTP and FileZilla. Out of these two, the one I recommend is FileZilla. It's the quickest one, the easiest one to use. But we will go over FTP upload and access next week. This week we will not, but you will definitely need to register your site. The other one that you can do, the first few weeks you can kind of get by, is they do have what's called a file manager or another file manager that lets you upload files one by one into this directory. But again, you got to do it one by one by one by one, which can take forever. Everything that you'll be uploading will be in what's called a public HTML folder. As you can see, here's all of my folders I have in here for the test one. And so that's the control panel. The other thing you'll need the control panel for is when we get into MySQL, you'll have to create a database. Here's my database I created. And then also you'll be using what's called PHP Myadmin that we'll get into tonight, where you can basically enter in your PHP admin to do table creation, editing databases, things of that nature. Okay? It's a fairly good site. The one thing you want to make sure on this site is to visit it about once every other day. Just visit your site and get some activity on it. It's ad driven, and so that's how they make money, and that's why they can offer it for free. And so I just tell students to visit your site, just click on it, go to it every other day, or even every day just for a few moments, and go back and forth, go to a few folders, whatever. That way they see activity on the site. Because if they see no activity on the site for a month, they will begin to delete your files or shut it down altogether. Now they do send you an email warning, but if you miss the email warning, you got to start all over again. So just visit it every other day and you're good to go. But it is a good site, and so you'll be registering for that this week. And then create a very simple home page. If you wanted to use, as it has on here, let me go back to the home page here of 00 Web Host. If you wanted to do the free PHP hosting, I think is what it is, it takes you to Wix. It's really good. Students like it. I've built a few sites for some faculty with it, but it's basically free web hosting, and it has some cool templates in it. And it's good for you to create maybe I've had students create just like their homepage only, and then all their links to their week-by-week assignments. And then those week-by-week assignments actually will open from their 00 Web Host presence. Does that make sense? And so both are free though. This one just looks a little nicer and flashier as a front end. Because you'll learn PHP isn't it's not a database language to do flashy stuff. PHP is a language to do behind the scenes stuff, all right? So forms, data, data aggregation, loading different types of modules within a page. And so you're still going to be using other types of HTML that you've used in the past to build websites, even with PHP, okay? And so this is a good resource for you to maybe play with. So you'll create a simple home page. You can use basic HTML, Dreamweaver, Wix.com, like I already mentioned. Then what you'll do is create a folder named lab with subfolders in it into your Zamp folder that we'll look at in a second. Because when Zamp installs on your computer or on your USB like we're going to do tonight, it creates a folder called Zamp, and it also has a folder called htdocs. Where all of your www documents are hosted, where your website, the root of your website's hosted, is in the htdocs, okay? So you will put the lab folder inside of the htdocs folder, and each week we generally have a lab, so that's going to be your week-by-week lab stuff you'll have in there. That stuff, remember, I do not collect that. You don't even get a grade for the lab. Now you do get a grade for being here for that lab time. I'm going to give you guys 50 points for being here in the classroom for that internal lab we're going to do each Wednesday, but I'm not going to collect the lab. I will be collecting and you will be compressing and uploading your homework each week. So you have two folders you'll create in your Zamp environment. One will be homework, the other will be a lab. And then the third one later on around week 10, 11, 12, you can already create it now if you want to, a folder called final, because that's going to be where you're going to be creating your final website for the course. So that's a Zamp recommendation for your file structure. I will not be coming around looking at that, but that's what I recommend, just to keep everything straight on your end. And then the external, the 00 web host, the only part of the local host you'll be copying will be the stuff inside of your homework. So technically you only need to copy the weeks 2, weeks 3, weeks 4, so on and so forth into the external. Okay? And so remember the external had a public folder, and in that public folder is where all of your files are located. So here's my week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, so on and so forth. This is the root. We could say this is this file manager here. File manager is the root of 00 web host. htdocs is the root of your local host that you'll be developing on. Okay? And you'll see that more in just a second. Okay? So here's an example of Petro Labs. He used a GUI interface front end he built in Dreamweaver. And then here's the links to his labs, PHP labs. And so that's a real good example of kind of what I'm looking for your layout for your each of your week's assignments. These aren't labs; these are the homework. Okay, and I picked that one because it's a really good example. And then to fill out the about me, this is the most difficult part. No, it's not. It's the easiest. So if we go to the lessons, there's an about me, which some of you already filled out already. You have a whole week to do this. You'll just copy the questions below, create a new post, type your first and last name in the title, paste the questions and answer them, and then I want you to reply to at least 2 other people. And the questions are name you go by, your favorite food, favorite movie, hobbies, and why you're taking the class. Okay? Now if you wanted to upload a picture of your favorite food or a picture of your favorite movie DVD, I don't care. All right, you can do that. You can have fun with it. You don't have to, but I do recommend, it's because we only meet once a week, to go through all of these and look at all of the posts. Okay, so that's week 1. I want to go right now into, if you have your USB drive, go ahead and plug it in your computer, because I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step here real quick of installing Zamp on a USB thumb drive. Okay? In order to do that, you can go back to week 1 after you plug in your USB thumb drive. Go back to the week 1 folder and click on the link that says Getting Started, where it says Read and Follow Instructions on Getting Started. And we're going to scroll down to number 4, the one I told you we come back to. Number 4 says Read and Follow the Steps for Setup PHP and MySQL. And by the way, this is located in the Documents folder of our site. So let me show you on the overhead. It's actually in the course documents where it's located at. Okay? Setup PHP and MySQL. So it's really easy. I've tried to make it real easy on the install. you got two choices, Mac or PC, okay? We're going to do the install for PC tonight, but if you're a Mac person, you just basically click on this, download it, and install it onto your Mac, and you're good to go, all right? And then lastly, after we download and install Zamp and make sure it's installed right, we'll download and uncompress this web290 file, because it will give you a default folder structure for you already to start with. And you can change it if you want to, but it kind of gives you something to start with, kind of a skeleton. So go ahead and click on that Windows install on USB, and hopefully it should begin a prompt to download in a few seconds. You want to download that to the desktop of your computer or in the download folder, wherever it sends it, it's fine. It'll probably put it in the download, depending on the browser you have. And it might take a few moments. I tried to upload this to Eagle, but it wouldn't let me. It said it's too large. But it probably would have been slower on Eagle, so it's probably a good thing I didn't do that. Yes?
What's the difference between Zamp and WAMP?
WAMP is actually a platform that has been around a while. It's not as well developed and kept up, though, as Zamp. It's about the only difference I can tell you. I haven't worked with it in years, but WAMP and MAMP both. MAMP is a Mac version of WAMP, and I have used both, and Ann Johnson uses it here for one of her classes, I believe. I just don't like it as much as Zamp, personally, but she likes it and says it works well for hers. So it's just a different flavor of a development platform for a server. Both of them pretty much have the same, function, I believe, because we're going to run, you'll see in just a second, once it installs, we'll run Apache and we'll run MySQL. And I believe that's what WAMP and MAMP both does too, and that's it. Nothing more than that. Do what? Yeah, and LAMP, exactly. So there's a whole bunch of different flavors out there. Zamp's just one I've used for years, and they do keep it up. The other ones probably do as well. I'm just more familiar with this one. That's the only one I've ever used, actually. And for development, it seems to work pretty good. I like this version, this portable version, because basically it can run out of any folder that you place it in. And so that's why I like it. It's a minimal version, is what they call it. And I do recommend, while mine's still downloading, yours is too maybe, I do recommend backing up your Zamp folder on a periodic basis. So I would say maybe compress it together, put it on a CD or something, or a DVD if you have, which you never use anymore. Compress them onto that, on a periodic basis, maybe a couple times a week. That way, if your computer, God forbid, does crash, you've got a backup of that, hard copy backup of your, well, say your hard drive crashes, and at the same time, you throw your USB drive down your garbage disposal. Okay? Hopefully that won't happen, but it could happen. All right? So if you have a backup, you're not gone. All right? The other way you can back up your stuff, because the only folder you're really going to need to keep track of data-wise, because you can always re-download Zamp and install like we're doing tonight, is the contents of the htdocs folder. That's the one you really want to keep a backup of. If you don't keep a backup of anything else, that one definitely keep a backup of the contents of the htdocs. So is everybody downloaded now? How much time we got? What percentage are we at? 50? 60? I'm going to leave mine up there just like that, because just make sure you have your USB thumb drive in, and we'll wait for it. Does yours do? Oh, okay. Do what now? Yeah. Yeah, so it'll let you download.
What is that, Mr. Conkle? That's the Internet Explorer security?
Yeah, I don't like it. I'd recommend using Firefox. There you go. And go ahead and hit save. And then go ahead and hit save again, or you can put it to your desktop. No, don't download it to your USB. It'll take longer. Just go ahead and put it to double click on your C drive. and go to your download folder in your C drive. Users. And then you'll see your S number in there. And then desktop. And then save. Okay. That's all right. Now, I know some of you are still downloading. I'm going to go ahead and go on with the tutorial. All right, so you can watch this later. So I've got my USB thumb drive in my computer, right? I'm going to go ahead and double click on this portable Zamp, run it, and what's going to happen is it's going to begin the install process. It'll ask me in just a second where to put it at, where to put the install. Okay, now it says here, you might get this at home, so that's why I'm going to do it on this computer, because this is not my computer that I use all the time. Zamp PHP cannot work without the Microsoft C++ 2008 redistributable package. Now open the Microsoft page for this download. Yes. Because you might get that at home. I don't know. Possibly. Because you do need that distributable to work, the C++, because they created it in C++ package, looks like. It's only a 4 meg download, so hopefully this won't take forever. No, I don't want to go there yet. I think it took me to IE. There we go. Okay, if you're in IE at home, if it directs you to IE like I just did, it directed me to Internet Explorer. On Internet Explorer, you will need to go up to the top bar and say, yes, I want to download this file, or you'll just sit there all night and it won't go anywhere. Okay, it happens. All right, so I'm glad it happened because it could happen to you. So we'll go ahead and run it right from the location, since it's only a 4 meg file. Just agree with everything and install it. Worst case scenario, we have to restart that install again for Zamp, but I don't think we should have to, but we'll find out. Okay, it's been successfully installed. I'm going to finish it. Exit out of Internet Explorer. Then it says the wizard here is going to step me through how to install Zamp. Now I'm going to expand these just for your purpose here. But it's going to install Apache MySQL and Tomcat, PHP Perl, PHP Myadmin, and fake sendmail. I'm going to keep them all checked. So keep them all checked. Don't uncheck anything. Next, and then here's where you're going to change the install path to your USB thumb drive. And I do recommend, if you don't have an empty thumb drive, to create one or something. They're not real expensive to get one. Back up. Let me see which drive mine is here real quick. Nope. Nope. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and format it. Okay, yeah. Shouldn't take too long. It is probably a good idea to start with a fresh thumb drive. And again, you can find them pretty cheap to do with. Go back. What's that now? Drive E. Okay, so it's going to go into my drive E, which is my thumb drive. It's going to create a folder called Zamp Portable. I'm going to install. It'll go through the install path, put all the needed files and extract them all into that USB thumb drive. After the install is finished, it's about an 80 meg plus install. We'll go through and click on the Zamp control panel and start PHP, and we'll start MySQL to begin to see our web server on a local host. Okay? Do what now? Yeah, just keep them all checked. Yeah, keep them all checked. It's fine. Nope. Mm-mm. Now, the one thing you could do too, it wouldn't hurt anything. You might have to remap everything later. And I don't recommend doing this, but you could download it. You could install onto a C folder somewhere, like on your desktop or whatever in a folder. And with this version that we're using, it should work. Anywhere you extract it, it's going to work too, because it doesn't need any folder paths. It doesn't need drive paths to work. It uses relative paths. And you're familiar with relative paths, hopefully, if you've had any web development language at all. And so relative path means it just needs to be in a folder somewhere where it was originally created, all right, in the same path of that executable. And so, okay, while that's still installing, I'm going to go back to our site real quick. There we go. Because I think I had a version of our site up here on web290. So let's go over some of the stuff you'll be doing right out of the week 2. Next week we'll be going into variables and constants. And one of the cool things about PHP is you might have taken C++ or VB before in the past. The difference in syntax is the fact that in PHP, you do not have to have a variable declaration. And like in C++, you had to declare whatever as whatever. So I declare a word called maybe int number as integer, all right, to declare it as an integer. In PHP, you don't do that. You don't declare anything as any type initially. It's whatever to the right of that equal sign creates that variable type, okay? So if I make a variable and I call it first name, and I put to the right of that variable an equal sign, and then in quotes I put Chuck, that variable first name has now become a string, okay? So that's how it declares variables, is by what's to the right of the operator, the equal operator. In other languages like C++, like C, like VB, you have to declare the type first, then use it. In PHP, you don't do that. It's a non-declaration type, all right? And so you'll learn more about that tonight. In fact, we'll create a hello world here in just a second. While we're waiting, actually, we can do it. This is a good time to do it. In our website, we have a tab called PHP IDE. If you click on that, do you guys have access tonight on that one? Does it say access denied? That's not good. Let me see what tab I put that in. I'll tell you what, we can get to it some other way. Go to Lessons tab. Go to Lessons tab and go to Course Documents and scroll down to nope, sorry. It's in Lessons tab, and it's Online PHP Editors. Do you have rights to that? Okay, cool. That'll work. 2 of them? Everybody see what I see? I'm hearing some no's, yes? Has everybody got it? Okay. The first one we want to go to is this one right here. It's a studio2.coderunner.com. It's a recommendation from me to learn PHP for development and learning. You can create an account and everything, but you don't have to create an account to use it. We can just start using it right now. They create a guest account for us in just a second. So when it runs, tell me what, kind of look at me when it's running like mine. We'll kind of play with it. All you need to do is click this new command, go down and select PHP on the left side under project type. We'll keep this the same for right now, but you can rename it to something if you were to register for this site. Because if you were to register for this site, it actually keeps track of projects you've created. Go ahead and click OK. Okay, so it creates a beginning hello world for us already. Okay, this is a syntax for PHP in a nutshell. You'll notice at the beginning line, the very first line, it has a lesser than symbol, question mark, PHP. That tells a web browser this is a PHP document, all right? And it also tells a web browser that it's a server-based document, meaning you've got two different types of web server apps. One would be client-based, the second is server-based. Client-based means everything runs off the browser. JavaScript is an example of that, okay? Java is an example of that. PHP and ASP.NET run off a server, meaning the code, when we run this, if we were to view the source, we wouldn't see the code for PHP, we would just see HTML code. And we'll look at one in just a second. So let's go ahead and just play with this real quick. Go ahead and click the Run button here. Do what? Oh yeah, it does. It does take a little bit the first time. Once it runs the first time, you just keep the screen up and we won't run it again. We'll just refresh the web page basically is what we'll do. But it's a pretty cool little development tool I found a few years back that I really like for developing PHP, because you know, while you're waiting, while you're anywhere, you can go on a web browser, go on our website, and start playing with your code, and start playing with stuff you've been playing with your for that week or whatever. But the first time it loads, it does take a while, because it makes sure it has all the hooks in the browser the very first time. Let's see how long I'm on the install here. Oh, I'm pretty quick. Do what now? Did it fail? It failed? Wonder if it says Firefox deal.
No, I just had it. I'm an IE.
Okay, I'm going to cancel it out.
Do we have to successfully download the Zamp for this to run?
No, this is running off a totally separate site. Let's see here. Let's run mine again. It might be it should run in Firefox fine, but I'm going to run on mine, see if it happens, so it works all right for us. Did anybody get theirs to run at all? You do? You have yours? Are you using Firefox? Okay. It does take a while. It might take a minute or two actually to load. And so if you need to shut down the browser and restart the run button, that's fine. We'll just let it sit there. Might be because we're all hitting at the same time. Might actually see us at the same IP address. I'm almost done, I think. It might actually be an RN blocking some stuff. I don't know. Yeah, it takes 4 or 5 minutes to install. Yeah, you don't want to be installing it all the time, but yeah. Yeah, I think I get something coming here. I see it. It's waiting, got some URLs popping up. It's got no errors on compile time. Well, mine's still compiling here. I'm going to go over here and talk about it. Okay, declaration. I talked about declaration earlier. If I want to declare what I talked about earlier, my name equals, in quotes, Chuck, okay? And then I'm going to replace hello world with my name. In PHP, what we've just done here, we have our opening PHP tag and our closing PHP tag. In between is PHP. We can also have wrapper of HTML before it and after it as well. But the echo command in PHP is one of the first commands you learn, which basically just kicks out to the screen that which you're echoing. All right? It echoes and reveals that whatever to the screen, to the browser. And so when this was to run, you should see on the web page Chuck, and that's it. If I wanted to put in some HTML code, I can do that. I can echo out, for instance, a BR tag, a break tag in HTML, another echo tag, and I could put comma, welcome to web290, exclamation point, end quote, semicolon. So what this should show me all on one, well, the first line is going to be Chuck. It'll go to the next line, which I shouldn't do that, but I'll move it. And then I'll put down here, and I'll put another echo. We'll put from RVC or something like that. Okay, that makes sense. So it's going to be on one line. It's going to be Chuck, comma, welcome to 290, web 290, a line break, and then from RVC. Let's see where I'm at here. Yay. So I'm going to go refresh this. I'm not going to run it again. I want you to refresh it once. Make sure I save that. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. So you'll notice my first line of code is Chuck, comma, welcome to web 290 from RVC. Now, I talked earlier about declaration, non-declaration type. That's what this means. My name is now a string because it has Chuck to the right of it. The other thing that makes this a declaration or a variable is the $ before the name. If you put a $ before the name, PHP sees that as a variable name. You will learn this semester variable names that are reserved. Don't worry about it right now, but there are some reserved words you can't use, and you'll learn more about that. But a simple hello world that all programmers do the first night in class and see it done anyway is just that. It's what we just did, a hello world using PHP. And what I wanted to show you was in the HTML code, if I go to view source here in HTML, yeah, thanks. It's not going to work well. Well, yeah. It's not really what I want to see. I want to see. Let me go ahead and download this real quick. I want to download this to my desktop, show you. I want to look at it in Notepad. Okay, there it is right there. I'll put it in IE, because the IE actually is a little nicer to view source code sometimes. Okay, so there's the site. There's the actual code. If I go to HTML, that's what from the site. And you'll notice all you see is HTML. I didn't write any HTML, did I? I wrote no HTML. It's all PHP. Open PHP tag, closing PHP tag, and then my code. What rendered the HTML? The web server did. The PHP web server rendered the HTML, and then the browser itself saw that web server. When it saw the web server code, it compiled it as HTML. What web browser? Any web browser you use. It could be Firefox, Safari, whatever. The HTML language is compiled on the fly from the server when it pulls it from the server. And then when you view the source, you're viewing just the HTML rendering of that PHP. Because one of the reasons why businesses use server-side scripting is because of security purposes. Okay? As you can see, you can't see what I did. I could type in 1,000 lines of PHP code. All you're going to see is the HTML rendering of that as a user, as an end user on a client. Does that make sense? So database connectivity issues, file connection issues will be hidden if it's wrapped in PHP. Do you have a question back here or something, or a comment?
I think I know the answer, but I was just going to say, so browsers cannot interpret PHP then?
No, they can't. If a server wasn't running, right, the reason I could see this right here on my browser is it's already rendered as HTML already when I downloaded it. But if I was just to open up that text file, for instance, let's do that real quick. If I was to open up code run, let's go there. Where you at? There we go. So this code here, if I was to open that up in a web browser, okay, that a server wasn't running, which let me show you real quick what I'm talking about. So I'm going to open up this code we already have, this HTML code. I'm going to go to View, Source. I'm going to go ahead and I want to replace this. I want to actually open that up with Notepad. Notepad, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to take this and replace it with that PHP code, right? I'm going to save it. Now, I don't have a web server running. But if it was a client-side script like JavaScript or something like that, it should run fine. But you notice when I open it up, there's absolutely nothing there. It doesn't see anything. It doesn't recognize it because the server is what renders that PHP code and then kicks back HTML. So, all right, so it looks like my Zamp is finished. I'm going to go ahead and finish it. All right, good. Now let's go to my folder. It does create a lot of folders. The one you want to create here, double click on this Zamp control.exe. This one right here, Zamp-control.exe. When it runs, what you'll see is a control panel. The control panel allows the opportunity to run certain items. The one I only recommend running is Apache and MySQL. Apache's needed to run the web server. MySQL's needed to connect database connectivity. So I'm going to run Apache. You want to accept all. If this pops up at home, check all three of these. Domain, private, and public, all three. Go and check all three. And you will get this at home if you have Vista 7 or 8. Otherwise, your firewall might block it. You don't want that. Okay, so I have now Apache running and MySQL's running. Now, I can click on the admin button to go directly in Windows to localhost, or I could just go to my web browser and type localhost, because that's all it's doing is going to localhost on a web browser. Here's a MySQL prompt for firewall. Again, check all three, domain, private, and public. Okay, so this is a beginning screen of Zamp. All right. All you need to do is click English to get started. And then it says, thank you for installing Zamp. It has up here the status of Zamp that we can go to. MySQL, PHP, everything's activated. Tomcat's not activated. We're not going to use that for email. Security, right now everything's unsecure. If you were to click on this link on your USB, it would make it secure, but don't worry about that right now. It can stay just like it is because it's only for development purposes. You're not putting this out there on the web. It's just for you to play with. Then it goes into documentation, components, PHP info. This is version 5.4.7 of PHP. Then it gives you some apps, PHP type apps, like it has a CD collection, biorhythm, instant art, phone book, has a Perl item for guest book. And then down here at the bottom, PHP Myadmin. This is the area where you actually do your database connectivity, creation of database, creation of tables in PHP Myadmin. Okay, so this is the interface we'll be using starting in week 3. I'll give you a real quick tutorial in week 3 of PHP Myadmin, how to create a database, how to create a simple table, how to create a user, all within PHP Myadmin. Okay, now let me go ahead and go back to that folder Zamp I talked about, the htdocs. If I go into Zamp Portable, there is an htdocs folder here. Okay, this is everything it has so far that you're seeing on the screen is in this folder. What I'm going to have you do is I do have a download. I do have a download here. I'm going to go ahead and X out of all these screens. Not that one. Back to web290. Okay. On the course document for installing PHP, there's a link here for web290. And I can do this. You can just watch me if you want to. You can do this at home. You don't have to do this tonight. What this does is it's a compressed file, and it has the contents of the structure for the class in Zamp that you can put in the htdocs. So let me show you here what that looks like. So let me extract that. It'll create a folder called web290. And then notice in here I've got a labs folder, projects folder. This is your week-by-week lab, your homework assignment. Pages is just a launching link and some images, an image, and that's it. So I'm going to copy that web290 folder. And make sure you copy just the folder that has the content. You'll notice I had it. Here's web290 I extracted, then web290 again. This is the one you want here. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to my C drive or my E drive that has my Samp install. Go to htdocs. I'm going to paste this in htdocs. And now let me show you. If I go and go to localhost, and you can just type it in any web browser. Notice Zamp, by default, it goes to Zamp, but I can go manually type in htdocs, or not htdocs, web290, and it brings up that default that we just put in there, okay, the web290. And it has in here a folder for home, labs, week 1 through whatever. You notice nothing's in there because you don't have them in there yet. I don't have them in there. It's just basically a shell for the week by week, including even the final site. So I have had students actually use this as their launching pad for the local host development because it has all the content that you need to get started in that web290 folder. What I mean by that is it has the shell, not the content, but the shell to put all of your week-by-week labs, week-by-week projects. You'll notice, we'll talk about this next week, a config file is in each one of these. That's needed for connectivity to databases, MySQL databases. And so if you want to use that, you can. You don't have to, but it is a good starting point, and you can make edits as well. This index.php is a page actually that has all the basic HTML in, and you can change that to fit your, put your name in there and all that good stuff. But the code for this, again, if I was to view this in an IE seems to be a little nicer viewing source code. If I was to view this source code, notice all the HTML code here for this page. Now let me show you the actual page itself, the index.php page. Let me open that up with Notepad. Okay, all jumbled in Notepad. It'll look better in Text Wrangler and better also in your Notepad++. But this is basically actually starting right here is PHP code. Notice it says page title equals web290. That's PHP. That's an open-end PHP code. Has another PHP code here. So this is mostly all PHP code, but it's rendered as HTML. So that web290 link is definitely going to help you as far as getting the structure for your Zamp install. So once you install Zamp, you'll download this web290, extract it, put it in the root of your htdocs in Zamp, like I just did here, and then you can go ahead and create your week 1, week 2, week 3, so on and so forth folders, because right now they're not in there. I deleted all the content, but you have a good shell to start with anyway. Okay? All right? Questions on that? So that's how to install Zamp. And then as far as working off of Zamp, I think I mentioned to you, when you're working off Zamp, I recommend bringing it to your local drive. Now, it took a while to install it, but that size of drive actually is not that big. Let's see how big it is, really. I'll go to that folder, show you how big it is real quick. It's not a huge file. 393 megs. Might take a few seconds to cover over from a USB drive. If I take this and I was to just take the entire Zamp and move it here, it's not going to take a long time, a few seconds actually to do. The only reason I recommend doing that is it might take some time. Well, this is going to take forever on my computer. Okay, so if it takes forever on your computer, don't do that. Okay, like it did on mine. Don't do that. Run it right from your USB drive. These computers here are dirt slow. Yours at home shouldn't take that long, but if it does, you can work off the USB thumb drive. That's fine. But the one thing I do recommend doing, if you're going to work off the USB thumb drive only because it takes too long on a computer possibly to copy over to the local, is this htdocs folder. You can basically just take that folder, bring it over somewhere on your local, and back that thing up and compress it, every other day or something, and put that in a backup somewhere. That way you have it. It takes a second to compress it. Okay, that's not a real large file. In fact, htdocs, for the most part, will stay fairly small because it's mostly text is all you're dealing with PHP. Okay, you will get, when you get into database stuff, it might grow a little bit, but it's not going to grow that much for what we're going to use. Okay, does that make sense? And so it's just text-based code basically that you'll be using a lot. So let's wrap it up here. Week 1, you've got back here. Week 1, you've got the About Me. You also have the Zamp install to do. Some of you might have already done that. Some of you might not have. Then after you do the Zamp install, you're going to set up a website on 00 web host. And 00 web host is what we're going to be using. And starting next week at the beginning of class, I'll show you how to get in to 00 web host and to upload files, start uploading your files. Once you create your 00 web host website, you're going to post below your URL, and it'll, whatever URL you want to create, just make sure and be creative when you're creating that URL, because if it's something like Joe, it won't be available, okay? Or I'm cool won't be available, all right? So think of something that, you can relate to, but it's kind of geeky, if that makes sense, all right? Because that will definitely go quicker on creation. So getting started, creating your website, posting it by next Wednesday, and the About Me. If you have any questions, which I know you will, I have recorded everything we've done tonight. You can rewatch it, or just that segment that you want to go over again. Maybe, I'm guessing, on the install, maybe possibly on moving that web290 zip file to your local host, and maybe a few other segments of the podcast you might want to listen to. But this will be posted in week 1 when I get through putting it into YouTube tonight. But I hope to have a great 16 weeks with you. You will learn a lot about PHP. If you ever have any questions or need help, I'm available all the time, and I do respond quickly to my emails. And if you've had me before, you know I respond very quickly to emails. I don't let you hang out there for days on end. And so I will generally, if you give me an email, I will generally, if it's a code question, I'll say, can you send me your code so I can look at it? And then what I'll generally do is send it back to you with some comments in the code on how to fix it, all right, whatever your issue might be. And then sometimes I'll even give you some other example code that's fairly similar to the problem you're having, so it'll be able to fix it easily. So, any questions before I let you go? Yes? No, we're doing Zamp only. It won't interfere because if you run it off the USB drive, it shouldn't interfere at all. But if you're on a Mac, if you're questioning it, I would say, yeah, take it off before you put Zamp on. Okay? All right, we'll see everybody next week. If you have any questions, come see me. Yeah, and the Samp install on the Mac is actually, it's about the same time. And I would recommend on your Mac installing it on the local drive on the Mac. Because you have a laptop, right? Yeah, we've got plugins right behind you. And then also you could use the Ethernet on your end from the computer, or Wi-Fi. We do have Wi-Fi in here. We have Wi-Fi you can connect your Mac to. No, for your internet connection. No, we have a plug-in right behind you underneath that you can use. Yep. Yeah. Ad slip. I need to fill out an ad slip for you.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to follow me upstairs, I'll go do that real quick.
Cool.